the Northwest. And we've got Harry with us today, who's one of my sponsees. So give us a wave, Harry.
Hi, everyone.
And Harry's got a few slides that he's going to do as well. So I'll share my slide deck. Happy to take questions as we go along, or you can leave them till the end or pop them in the chat and we can do them in the end as well. So I just checked my slides are sharing. Yep, smashing. Okay. So today I've been asked to talk about understanding your role as a sponsor, looking particularly at responsibilities, best practice and impact. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'm happy to share, what's happened in my journey of being a sponsor. If I can get my slides to move to the next one. Okay, so I'll do a bit of an introduction, defining sponsorship, key responsibilities, what effective sponsorship practices are, overcoming common challenges and how we measure and sustain sponsorship relationships. It's probably one of the harder bits. So a little bit of background about me, and then when Harry comes to him, I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit about himself as well. So I joined the NHS last century. Straight from uni into a finance role in the office, processing invoices, and worked my way up from that band 3 level. I've worked in 8 different organisations: acute, ambulance and community. Always had a keen interest in developing myself, obviously, like on that journey from a band 3 to chief finance officer, but also balance it, developing your team as well has always been really important to me. We're only as good as the team that we work in, and even more so now in the challenging times that we're all in, not losing sight of that's really, really important. We're all too busy to go on the course or jump on the webinar, but it's even more important to do it in these challenging times. I've got the CMI level 5 in coaching, which I find really, really useful when it comes to going through that sponsorship process. And I've also been an action learning set facilitator for the grad scheme as well. So I think both of those things have been really, really useful tools as I've stepped into supporting the sponsorship programme since 2022. In that time, I've had 6 sponsees, and I've currently got 4 of those at the moment. And Harry is one of my current sponsees, who I actually adopted. So my boss was his sponsor, and she moved away. So we kept that relationship going. So what it means to be a sponsor, it's about being an active advocate. So, and I think this slide's really about the difference between being a mentor and being a sponsor. And I think it's something I struggle with because I think it's a bit of everything. So it's that active influence and career advancement with the sponsees. So it's not just about giving guidance, it's about actively doing something with it and creating those opportunities, opening doors. So as we're more senior in our careers, we know people talk to us, have you got somebody who knows how to do this or wants an experience in that? Creating those opportunities for your sponsee to be able to volunteer, or be part of a working group. I might be in our Cheshire and Mersey DOFS call and there's a piece of work that needs doing, and I might know one of my sponsees has got an interest in that or wants to step into that kind of arena. And we're in positions of power as well, where we can get our sponsees to come and observe our boards and our committee meetings. A member of my team came and presented to the Cheshire and Mersey DOFS community. So, presenting to a room of about 20 people about Working Day 1 that we'd implemented. It was a really good opportunity for him to showcase what he's been doing and what the team's been doing. And he got some really good feedback and grew from that experience. Raising the profile as well and the visibility of our sponsees. So whether that's an internal sponsee or somebody else from another organisation, talking about them, talking about what they've been doing, how active they are in the finance community can be really helpful, and people hear that and hear people's names being mentioned. So that difference between mentor and sponsorship role, the mentor is very much about guidance, advice, personal development, support growth. I think you still do that as well when you're being a sponsor, but it's using that influence and that networks as well, and visibility. So I think it's a bit of everything. The mentorship bit is about coaching, whereas the sponsorship's more about being a champion for that person. So it's just that step further and using influence to get opportunities. It's a focus on action as well. And there's some mutual risk in there. So if I put one of my sponsees forward for, a promotion or a job, or recommend them to another director of finance, there's a bit on that about me, because if they don't perform, it's like, why did you put them forward? So it goes both ways. And I think sometimes your sponsors don't know what they need from that relationship as well. So it's really important that you sort of understand what they want to get out of the relationship. So there's different reasons why people go to get sponsorship support. There can be breaking barriers, so it helps individuals overcome obstacles that are limiting their career progression. And I think as a sponsor, you support them in identifying what those barriers are. And I'll talk a bit later in the presentation about the tools that you can use for that. And so understanding, well, why have you not got that next role, or why have you not been successful, and unpacking that a little bit when using those coaching skills that many of you will already have as well, and those coaching style questions to understand that. Because once you understand the issue, you can then understand how you can support and what doors you might be able to open for that individual. Access to leadership roles, so providing pathways. So that's not about getting them the next role. It isn't a fast track way of jumping into the next job. That's got to be done by the individual, but it's about understanding where they want to be, and what experience they need, and how you can support them to get that experience if they're not getting that in their current environment that they work in. It's obviously a lot easier if you've got an internal sponsee, because you can open those doors in your own organisation. Not always as easy when they're in a different organisation to you. And then navigating the politics. So as a sponsor, you've got all this experience and knowledge available to you. You'll all have worked several years, in the workplace or in the NHS. And helping that individual who's lower down on the career ladder understand some of the politics that go on in an organisation as well, and how to deal with it from your own experience or those of other people around you. So that understanding why and what your sponsee wants to get out of it is really important to know how you can help. And I've had sponsees that haven't necessarily needed sponsorship, they've needed something else. And that doesn't mean your relationship stops there, but it sometimes turns into something different. So key responsibilities and expectations of the sponsor. So promoting talents, so highlighting the skills and accomplishments in professional settings. So that might be helping them come along to a committee or a board and present some information, celebrating the successes, getting them involved in external groups or work streams that might be going on in your ICS. And I'm sure Harry will talk to us a bit about how he's got involved in HFMA, and how that's supported all his links and networks that he's got now, and making sure people get that recognition. And we probably all do that in our own teams, so I'll be the first to say, and my management accountant has done this piece of work, isn't it great, and share it with my exec colleagues. It's really hard if your sponsee doesn't work in that kind of environment and they're not getting recognised for the work that they're doing. So how can we get them that a different way, and maybe outside of their trust? Got ensuring recognition, so we mentioned that there, access to opportunities, so opening those doors for them, and that's from our networks. Being able to know that some roles maybe are coming up that they might be interested in applying for. And shadowing and getting involved in projects, so those relevant resources there to to help them grow into those opportunities. So if one of the things you've identified is that your sponsee is wanting to move up to the next level in their career, what is it that they need to be able to do that, and how can you help them get that experience if they're not getting it in their current workplace? Facilitating network opportunities. So the more people know you, the more they're likely to, look at your CV. You've got that in already. If you go for an interview, they know you're involved in HFMA, or you've had an award at HSJ. It's getting yourself known out there, isn't it? And that can be just as important as some of the experience you've got. Getting involved in organising conferences. So one of my sponsees was on the procurement side, but got involved in organising a conference and got to know lots of other people quite senior in the world that she worked in. So for effective sponsorship practices, trust and communication, I think is really key. I think when I first join up with a sponsee and we work out, are we the right people for each other to support each other? That transparent dialogue is really, really important. You've got to be able to have open and honest conversations. So if somebody's goal is to get their CIMA exams all boxed off and be qualified, but they're not doing much about it, you need to be able to have that conversation. Is that really the goal that you're working for right now? Or have you want to apply for another job but you haven't done it? What's stopping you? And how, you've got to be, you can't pussyfoot around it. You've got to be true and have open conversations. But it needs to be a safe space to grow as well. So that individual needs to know that they can come and talk to you, say what the problems are, why it's not working, and be honest as well, and know that you're not going to run back to the boss and tell them, or say anything to anybody else. And look at those setbacks and work through them, and reflect on what's happened and how you might do something different next time. And I think as a sponsor, you come with years of experience to be able to say to someone more junior, it's not the end of the world that you didn't get that job, it wasn't the right one. There'll be the next one, and how do we get ready for that? And it's like helping them pick themselves up, dust themselves off sometimes as well, and not give up, and not lose too much confidence as a result of that as well. Collaborative objective setting. So work together, clear objectives and success criteria. So it's knowing what you're aiming for. Otherwise, it can just end up being a bit of a chat. And I found that with some of my relationships with my sponsees, they go through peaks and troughs, and sometimes we're really motivated. There's a goal that's 6 months down the line that we're working towards, and then it might be a bit of a lull for a couple of months then, because they're embedding into a new job that they're in, and it's more a bit of maintenance relationship at that point. And then further along the line, if that relationship continues, it might go back up as we set some new objectives. But you have to allow, I think, for those peaks and troughs, because it can't all be constant. We'd all run out of energy, wouldn't we? Oh, just admit that person. And then ensuring alignment, so clear goals. So we need to know how we're going to measure it, and focus on those shared objectives. So I've got a sponsee who's been with me for quite some time, but they've been really, really poorly. So as we started our relationship, it was very much about going on for the next job, and what was that going to be in the next career step. But other events have happened in life, and that's just normal, isn't it? So it's turned more into a coaching relationship, but that's okay. And when she's feeling better, we will move on with our journey together. And I've had one sponsee who's no longer a sponsee with me, but the honest communication bit really didn't work. And I suppose I'm bearing all here. Not all sponsorship relationships are end up doing what they need to do, and then the person wasn't dealing with things in a very professional way. And it's really important that you can be honest and hold that mirror up and sort of say, was it okay that you spoke to your manager that way? And work through that. And most people will reflect on a conversation like that, but not everyone. So not all relationships are perfect. Like mine and Harry's sponsorship relationship. So hopefully he'll just say nice things when it comes to his part of the presentation. But I think sometimes you get those setbacks. I think it's really important when you do, though, as a sponsor, you can reach out to other more experienced sponsors and get some help and support yourself. It isn't textbook. You can't just follow, we've got checklists and things, haven't we, on the One NHS website. But it isn't a checklist. These are individuals that you're dealing with who are very complex, come with different things, different parts in their life, in their career, and you need to sort of flex with that as you work with them. The next one. So all that said, I suppose it's really important that we can monitor progress for ourselves as sponsors and for the sponsees as well. So knowing that we're doing it right, we're adding value, it's a really responsible role, and we don't want to be wasting, your time as a sponsor or the sponsee's time. You need to know that you're making progress. So frequent meetings, really important. Again, as you go through that journey, Harry's been in the sponsorship program for quite some time. When he originally started with Andrea, it would have been once a month. Now we probably meet every couple of months, as we feel that we need it. But if Harry was applying for another job, in 3 months' time, we might decide, let's meet monthly and let's get ready for that. And what do you need to do and how can I help you? So flexing it up and down. The toolkits are really important. So on the One NHS finance website, you'll find loads of information on there if you're not familiar with it. Put the link on the slides. The slides will go out as well. There's coaching conversations, the GROW model, from coaching. The career wheel I find really useful as well. It's really basic, but where are you right now and what do you want to focus on? And you can use that maybe on a 6-monthly rotation if you're feeling like a little bit lost with some of the conversations that you're having. And some of mine that have needed more coaching rather than sponsorship, that's been really useful. And those career conversations as well, at talent management, which people should have in their workplace, but they're not always meaningful in the workplace, are they? And having that outside can sometimes help as well. Constructive feedback. So I've talked about like being able to be honest, but like what's gone well, what hasn't. When you meet back up, you check in on what your objectives were from the last meeting. Have we done them? If you've not done them, why not? Understand if you have done them and didn't get the result they wanted, what could you do differently? And just working together on that. But being able to, it's about the sponsee being quite vulnerable as well. Being able to say, oh, that was a car crash. I went away and I tried to do it and it didn't work. And then we can reset and look at why and what we'll do different next time. And that's the thing about adjusting as well, as we go along and reflecting, and making sure that we're getting out of the sessions something that's useful. So I've probably said a bit about that, but those early sessions, I would say, is really important. You build a relationship, you've got that shadowing, you get to know each other. It's that bit of what happens afterwards, and keeping that momentum can be quite difficult in the relationship. So setting clear goals is really important. So some common challenges in sponsorship. So self-awareness of your biases. A sponsor needs to recognise unconscious bias. So I try to think, and I've had sponsees from all different backgrounds. How would I feel or think if the person sat in front of me was my favourite person in the office? Am I hearing it differently? And just checking yourself how you are reacting to what's being said to you, and would you do that in a different situation with somebody else? Providing that encouragement. So I think a lot of our sponsees have got a bit of imposter syndrome or limiting beliefs, lack of confidence. I certainly have, coming doing this presentation to you guys, because some of you might know more than me, and maybe you've got more sponsees or been doing it for longer. I don't know any of your background, and I'm certainly not an expert, and I think every relationship I've got with my sponsees has been different. some examples like providing encouragement. I've a sponsee who applied for a promotion who hadn't done that for years and years and years because she just didn't think she would get it. It was just like that lack of confidence. And another one similar, to step out of a comfort zone, step a little bit sideways to finance to get some more experience. But she's just added so much value to the organisation by doing that. So she stepped sideways and upwards, and having a dotted line to the medical director as well as to director of finance. So it's been a real eye opener for her, but she would never have applied for that was she not on the sponsorship programme. Ensuring accountability can be a challenge as well. You've got to hold sponsees to account, and that's like having that open and frank conversation. You know, are you committed to doing this, or are we just meeting for a chat once a month? Is it doing what it should do? Reflecting as well, is sponsorship working, and do they need something else? So I've had one sponsee who it was going into the realms of counselling, not even coaching, counselling, and they were just in a really bad place at the time. They thought sponsorship was what they needed. That's the bit that they thought was broken in their path that they were down. And without oversharing, obviously, with her permission, I actually got in touch with her line manager. There was like some stuff going on there that wasn't in the sponsorship realms, and we need to be really careful that we understand where those lines are in our relationships with our sponsees. I'm not a qualified counsellor, and she needed more support, which she got, and that was great. And we still have a relationship, but it's not really a sponsor relationship. But ending the sponsorship program can be quite difficult. You know, coming to the natural end of that relationship is probably something that's quite challenging, but you can carry on being friends with the person, you can carry on keeping in touch, but it might be that they're ready for something else, or wherever they are in their career path. And support, I've already mentioned, you know, we need support as sponsors as well. Am I doing it right? So especially with that one, which is a very sensitive example. You know, I reached out to someone very, very senior who I knew had lots of years experience, just to check in, to say, this is what I'm planning on doing. I've got their permission, and so on, just to know that he's not keeping you awake at night as well. This is the last slide from me before I hand over to Harry. So it's about measuring that impact. So following on from how do I know I'm doing it right? Of the 6 people who I've had in sponsorship, 4 of them have got promotions. It might have happened without sponsorship. I'd like to think I've had a little bit of an impact on that. You know, so is it doing what we set out to do? And if that was their goal, to progress on the career, then you tick that box, don't you? I also read on the website as well, there's evidence that sponsors benefit. So 53% more likely to receive promotion in the last 2 years. So, and I have. So whether that's because I became a sponsor, or whether that would have happened naturally, that is true for me. So I don't know the science behind that, but I guess you're opening yourself up, you're improving your networks as well, and reaching out to other people in the finance community. Increased visibility. So is the person that you're sponsoring out there more now? Do more people know who they are? Certainly for Harry on his journey, he'll talk about in a minute. But yes, for people who I've sponsored internally as well, they've stepped up and out, going to more committees, more board meetings, and they're known now by more senior people in the organisation. So there's tangible benefits there and measurable outcomes. So I'm going to hand over to Harry for a couple of slides, and then I'll wrap us up and take any questions. The floor's yours, Harry.
Do you want me to share my, well, the
Oh, no,
slide.
I can click for you if you want. Yeah, do you want me to click on?
I've just clicked share, to be fair.
Okay.
Can everyone still see my screen?
It's oh.
Yep, certainly can.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm Harry Bosman, Finance Business Partner for Maternity and Neonatal Services at Liverpool Women's Hospital, which is also in the Northwest, and it's in the same patch as Jane and Cheshire Merseyside. So just a bit about me. I've been in the NHS for just under 7 years now, been in 3 different specialist trusts, and I am a sponsee and sponsor.
Harry, it's gone blank. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Sorry, your words are coming up now.
Sorry. So I'm just going to talk a bit about how I access the sponsorship program, the benefits that I've got from it, and any changes that I might have made earlier into the program. So originally I was sponsored by Andrew McGee, who was the CFO at Warrington at the time. So I weren't actually looking for a sponsor at the time. So I met Andrea through Shadow Senior Leadership Program, which was just a regional initiative. It pretty much says, it does what it says on the tin around shadowing a senior leader. You appeared with someone and everyone got a bit of a different experience. It just kind of, it was whatever you wanted to get out of it. So on the first meeting, I was a band 4 management accountant assistant at the time. And I met up with Andrea in Warrington for the first time and we got paired together, which was really daunting for me at the time because being a band 4, I hadn't had much experience with CFOs or most of the time I hadn't really spoke to deputies either. So meeting up with Andrew was something that was really out of my comfort zone, but I wanted to do it, just get some benefits out of it. So we discussed some similarities that we had in our career paths, which I've also got the same ones with Jane as well. And they've been really beneficial for the sponsorship program because I do feel like I can really relate to them and what they've been through, and I probably might be going through similar things. So just the first one was around both working in Cheshire Merseyside. Me and Jane discuss all the time around some of the things that are going on in the region and stressful times ahead and stuff like that. So it's good to have that sound off board. The next one at the time, I was still studying ACCA, still am now, and Andrea had studied it as well. So we related on how much we hated exams and all the learning going through it. Me and Andrea both left school with same qualifications, so we left with A levels, which I think I at the time had the misconception that, you know, or to ever progress in any role, you've got to have went to university, and it was probably something that I kicked myself for not going. But it was reassuring to learn that someone had a really similar career path to me. And then the last one was we both started in AP. So there's just a cartoon of someone deep in invoices that I'm sure everyone can relate to. So what benefits? So originally through that Shadow Senior Leadership Program, we decided that I was going to shadow 7 different meetings, and I got really different benefits from all of them. So I shadowed Warrington Halton's digital group, National Finance Academy's leadership group, which was chaired by Julian Kelly, who was the CFO of NHS England at the time. I went to a Band 26 careers event with Andrea, an ICS procurement steering group, which was new to me. I'd done worked in procurement for 3 months, so I didn't have a lot of knowledge of procurement. So that was just a really different group to go to. And it was interesting for me to see Andrea chairing it as a finance professional as well. And then I went to Finance Resource Group, Finance Sustainability Committee, and then Public Trust Board. So kind of got a lot of different knowledge, really, really specific knowledge from them. So some of the stats around, I can't remember what meeting it was, but it was 1 in 3 people in Cheshire Merseyside living in deprivation. So it was interesting to see what Warrington were doing to kind of support that. Obviously, Warrington can't solve that whole problem, but there's little initiatives that can be done to improve the situation. The other one was the finance leadership group. So they discussed around 25% of students on free school meals will go to university, the other 75% weren't. So learning what they were trying to do in the initiative they were putting in place was interesting for me. I went on free school meals, but I hadn't went to university as well. So some of them initiatives would have I would have been able to apply for at the time if they were around. So that was really, really interesting. But I suppose more generally for my job role, it was that exposure to committees. I knew what committees were, I'd never seen one, I'd never been to one, never seen the papers, and understanding the governance structures around them. So biggest one was understanding the role of a NED. So anyone who's just done, or anyone has done the audit and assurance exam for ACCA will know exactly what they are, but seeing the practicalities of them and what they actually do in a meeting was really interesting. As I mentioned before, I've worked in three different specialist organisations, never worked in a district general hospital before. So just seeing the difference in between how we operate was really interesting. So one of the meetings, which was the finance resources group at the time, Warrington were on full capacity protocol. I'd never knew that was a thing working in a specialist organisation. So seeing how that affects operational pressures, affects finance committees was really interesting as well. Understanding the role of a CFO. So I'll touch a bit more on that one in the next point. But then communication styles as well. So seeing that constructive challenge between different members of the group, seeing different relationships going on. Andrea, I caught up with Andrea after the meetings as well, and I'd say, oh, I noticed this meeting, and I noticed that wasn't. I noticed in the meeting that was an area of contention and stuff like that, and it was clear to see, observing some of it. And then after it did give me some confidence as well to speak to my own CFO about it. So I mentioned that I've been to these different groups, and she was really keen for me to go back to. I was in Liverpool, Heart and Chest at the time, and I observed some of the similar meetings in Heart and Chest. So the digital group and the finance resource group, I went to my own hospitals. It was really interesting again to see the difference between a specialist and a district general, but good areas practice, maybe not so good. What could we improve on? And I fed that back to Andrew as well. So that was really interesting for me. Probably the most important part for this meeting as well. What benefits did Andrew get from this as well? Because I know probably everyone's on here from a sponsor point of view. So after the meeting, Andrew had asked for some feedback on them. What I didn't know is she just wanted feedback on the meeting. She didn't want feedback on herself. But I wrote some bits up for her, and she was actually really interested to hear them. So one of the main things that I observed, and I touching on the role of CFO, was that in the meeting, except the finance groups, Andrew didn't ask a single finance question. It was more around risk to individuals, risk to the organisation, but that was to the general public, to patients, to staff, stuff that I didn't really think was part of finance. So I think prior to meeting Andrew, I thought a CFO was someone who went to big control panels and discretionary spend. So there's no money and we need to do this, we need to focus on finance. But it was actually giving an eye opener to a lot of different things that a CFO does. Andrew was actually really pleased with what I'd observed. I didn't know how she was going to take it, but she was keen to share it back with other individuals. So she shared it with the chair of the finance performance group, who was the Ned, who actually was quite interested in that. And she shared it with her CEO at the time as well. So I think all of that experience was invaluable to getting onto the sponsorship program. So at the time, while I joined, so after I'd been to all this, I was in my PDR, my line manager did advise that maybe getting a sponsor was something that I should do. I think as well, I did have doubts about my progression and how I was ever going to progress, not having a degree, and I was struggling with the exams and stuff like that. So I wanted independent advice from someone that I felt was kind of qualified. And when I say qualified, I don't mean anything in terms of exams, just mean qualified with that experience to give me something or that I can relate to. And I also thought it was quite important to get it from someone external as well. So I think at the time I had a really good line manager who would always give me feedback, but getting that external perspective from someone that you don't work with that closely, who's kind of taking your surface level, was really good for me. When I was choosing a sponsor though, at the time, I did get paired with someone else, but I recognised that I'd already built a bit of a relationship with Andrew, and I think it is really hard to build them like really trusting relationships and honest conversations. And I don't think you'll get it with everyone. I think just sometimes it's people you relate to and people that you don't. And I think I recognised that Andrew was someone at the time that did. So moving on a little bit, so um, Andrea left, I think, about a year into my sponsorship with her. So then Andrea asked me, did I want to get paired with Jane, which I was really pleased about. Me and Jane have a lot of similarities as well in terms of career paths. So I still am sponsored by Jane now. So we meet around every 8 to 12 weeks. I come to Warrington most of the time and we do it in person. I feel like it flows a little bit better in person if it's something that you can do or if it's possible. I think it's a really good benefit to it. We don't have a set agenda either, but I often go with 3 points that I think this is something I really want to go over, just so that we definitely got something to speak about and we're not wasting each other's time. And I definitely think right now I'm probably in a bit of a maintenance phase. So one thing that Jane and Andrea both said to me was around get my exams done and they're not going to go away. And probably I did think, oh, maybe they will go away and maybe I can just surpass them. But it was that independent person saying to me, no, you really need to go and do them. Otherwise, you are going to get to ceiling point. So think until I pass them exams, which I've got another year, I'm probably in a bit of a maintenance phase, but then there's still time to do other things. So I've still done bits of shadowing and got involved in different networks. So as I mentioned, having some of the ongoing benefits, someone independent to ask for advice, see what their experience have been dealing with different things and having that dedicated time to focus on your career and work life been really beneficial. I think probably the situation we're in Cheshire Merseyside, time is a real reward. So having that specific time to focus on it when we haven't had it in the rest of the workplace has been really good. Since then, so I started with Andrew as a band four. I'm an 8A now in a temporary role, and every promotion I've been for before that, I've sought advice from my sponsor for the interview. And it's really given me confidence as well, having a good sponsor experience to sponsor another individual. So I've recently sponsored a band three in the region. That's been really good for me. Additionally as well, so I've been to loads of different conferences, and I've always had someone to speak to when I've seen Andrea or Jane, who've introduced me to different people. And from that, I was asked by someone that I was introduced to chair the Band 2 to 6 group for the Northwest for HFMA. They only knew me purely from meeting me in the conference, being introduced by Jane. So that's been really beneficial for me, and wouldn't have had that experience if I wouldn't have went and been sponsored by Jane. Then if I could change anything about my experience, so I don't think I've had anything negative at all from any sponsor. It's more been around what I could have done a little bit better. So I think I came a bit unprepared and I wasn't exactly sure on what I wanted to achieve, which was still okay. And we worked through what I wanted to achieve. But I think if I would have spent a little bit more time establishing what my goals were, or kind of just where I wanted to be, which I still don't fully know where I want to be now, but just having a bit more of that idea, that would have been a bit more beneficial to plan and, for the future with my sponsor. But I think as well, probably, and I think I've included this because it's something that I realised going into it, and I've shared with my sponsee, is that I could have utilised some internal opportunities a little bit better. So I'm always encouraging my sponsee now, well, can't you ask your line manager if you can shadow that meeting? Can't you go to this? Does your organisation not have this? Because although I did go and shadow an external organisation, my CFO said, well, that you always could have done that here as well. And I did still do that. But just reflecting on that, they're the two things that when I've sponsored someone now, I've made sure that they've done these things, and it's made their experience a little bit better as well, because it is new for them and they won't have this experience of it. And that was everything from me. Do you want me to keep sharing, Jay, and I can click for you? You're on mute.
I'm on mute. I might have made some changes, so I'll share
Okay.
mine. Thanks, Harry. Thank you for that. Really interesting. And yeah, and I'd forgotten actually you're a sponsor now as well. So I think that's another tick in the box that it's been successful. You obviously feel like it's been really beneficial to you, that you want to give that back. I'm conscious of time and I want to leave some time for questions. So I'll just rattle through the last couple of slides, really, just a bit of a summary. Building professional networks, so strong professional connections, I think, for both sponsee and sponsor, enhancing reputation. So, so people approach me now because they know I've sponsored a few people and there's been some success in that. And have you got time? Can you, I've got someone who would benefit from having a few sessions with you and that kind of thing. So I'm more known as well on the patch. And Harry certainly is from putting himself out there. And stepping into that area where you grow, it's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's definitely been lovely to see my sponsees grow and develop. That shift in confidence. It's really important about reflecting both, sponsor, changing, adapting as you go through that, picking up those tools, dusting off the career wheel or whatever, and just those new approaches that you can do as you go through that relationship, because it does evolve. And like say, like maintenance phase, I was calling it peaks and troughs. Or maintenance phases do happen, and how do you put some more energy back in that? And I think one of the biggest things for me is that opportunity to give back. So there wasn't a sponsorship program when I started off on my career, but I've been really fortunate to work with and for people who have given me that informal coaching, mentoring, sponsorship. So it wasn't formal, but they've always been present through my career and supported me. So that being able to give something back and having the confidence myself that I can, it's like you kind of all of a sudden you realise where you are in your career. It's like, oh, I can do that for somebody else. But seeing people grow makes me really proud as well. So proud for the individual, proud for the part that I've played in that as well. So that's probably one of the main things that I get from the process. And if we can go on to the next slide, it's not. Nope, there we go. So just a conclusion there, that power of sponsorship. Obviously you're all interested in it, either already sponsoring or planning on doing that professional growth, through commitment, trust, strategy and effort. It does take a lot of effort to maintain the relationships sometimes. Some of them come more naturally. But obviously it improves diversity and inclusion in our teams, which we all know the benefits that we can get from that, and making sure, regardless of somebody's background, they're going to get the same opportunities as other people in your team as well. There is a responsible role. responsible for, supporting with the development, but everyone's different. And overcoming those challenges, embracing best practice, talking to other people and using the toolkits are all really important things that we've got at our fingertips to help us. And that was it for the presentation. Stop sharing. Are there any questions or any reflections or, there we go, Matthew.
Thanks, both, for the presentation. I found it really useful and interesting. I suppose my question is around kind of, given the current environment where we've got less and less time to do things and less people to kind of do the work required from a finance perspective, how have you managed to kind of make sure that you create the space both from a sponsor and a sponsee perspective to make sure you keep that time kind of to one side to do what we need to do?
Yeah, it's really hard. I'll come in first and then I'll let Harry answer as well. I think I've noticed, because we are all really busy, aren't we? I mean, and it's great to see so many people on the screen today when we're where we are in the season. I found that we're probably meeting a little bit less frequently, and the sponsees that I've got at the moment are all well-established relationships, so I can afford to do that with them. We're not in that intense phase right at the beginning. So personally right now, I think I would struggle to take on a new sponsee, just because it is really, there's that time commitment that you need to put into it. I think I'd have to lose some to be able to free that up. I think that you come away quite energized from the sessions sometimes as well, and think about how you can do things differently with your own team and give people opportunities in your own team. So you meet with your external, so a bit like when you go on a course or a conference, you've not got time to go on it, but you come back energized, and then you can have that extra impact. You've got to be passionate about it. I think you've got to really want to be involved in it and understand the benefit that you're giving to the individual and helping yourself grow. And it gives you a bit of thinking time. We're like, a lot of us are in the office at like 7 and going home at 7 at the moment. It's nose to the grindstone constantly, isn't it? But to step away for an hour or so yourself actually just gives you a bit of breathing and thinking time. Preparing for it, though, is really sometimes really hard. So, you do end up maybe reading the notes from the last meeting at the last minute. Sometimes find driving to my sponsorship session more useful, because I can switch off from work rather than being sat at my desk and the boss knocking on the door to ask for something while you're trying to do this. So there's little tips like that. Harry, is there anything, how are you finding getting away from the office?
Yeah, probably just like honesty around work commitments, stuff like that. So there has been times where like I've rescheduled mine with my sponsee. I think mine and Jane's been like rescheduled 1 or 2 times, but so just making sure that they're always rebooked in. So if there's never been a time where we've cancelled, it's just been rescheduled so that the time's still there. I think probably one of the only other things has been, I think that's why it has been really beneficial, as us both working in the same patch. So when I'm going to meet with Jane, it's been, oh God, have you found this? And we're both really relating to it. And we're both well aware of what's going on in the region and how stressful it is. Because I don't think there's any organisation that isn't relating to the next organisation in the same patch now, working within ICBs. So I think we've just probably spoke about them challenges as well in the meeting and just addressed them there and then as well.
I mean, to be honest, I'm using this time now to decompress before I go to my monthly PwC meeting this afternoon. And I'd rather be here talking to you guys than going to that. So, but yeah, you can easily cancel things, can't you? But yeah, you've got to be committed to it. But good question. Michael?
Hi, morning. Yeah, thanks both. Really interesting and food for thought. I work in the London region for NHS England. It's my first sponsor role, and my sponsee is in one of the London trusts. What I've sort of been pondering, and a couple of your points sort of spoke to it a bit, I think, was that I sort of get the impression that their line manager isn't necessarily the best in terms of offering them opportunities, and that bit about what they get to do internally. And I've just been pondering, is that something where I might reach out to them? But it's obviously quite a sensitive bit. And I just thought, from anyone who's had sort of similar experiences, if they've got any thoughts or tips on sort of how to approach that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know if anyone else wants to come in as well. Please shout if you want to. You're not going to be able to change his or her line manager. And some line managers are very set in the ways, and there's a way we do things around here, isn't there? And but I suppose it's working with your sponsee to put things forward that they might want to suggest to the line manager. They can always be knocked back, can't they? And then it's thinking about, well, if you're not going to grow in that space, where will you grow? And sometimes relationships break down between individuals and their line managers that can't be fixed. We're all human, aren't we? And we all know everyone's never going to get on with everybody. We hope everyone behaves professionally in the workplace. So it's about supporting them if they can't get through that as well. The NHS is a very big place. I mean, in London, there must be loads of opportunities as well as all the different organisations and the size of the NHS. So supporting them and having that confidence for where next if they're not growing in the environment that they're in, I would say. But I don't know if anyone else wants to come in on that if you've experienced it. Does that help? Yeah, okay. Lorraine?
Hi, Jane. So I've been on the sponsorship programme for about 4 years, and it was my turn to give something back. So I've just taken on a sponsor this year. So we've only met once initially. So I've also changed sponsors recently. So I've only met with my sponsor. So originally I always did mine on Teams. My new sponsor suggested doing them face to face. So I'm just thinking from my perspective with my sponsor, I haven't had enough experience with my new sponsor to know whether face to face works or whether you keep it to Teams. So with my sponsor, I was wondering whether I should offer the face to face or keep it with Teams. And I just wondered, from you being an experienced sponsor, have you seen any benefits of doing it either way?
So I prefer to see people face to face, but we've all got different preferences, haven't we? And you will have a different preference, and your sponsor might have a different preference. So I just think, and Harry mentioned it before, that face to face, I think we're human beings, and you just build a little bit more connection, I think. I think we all saw that as we all started using Teams after COVID. The mirroring of body language and things isn't quite the same on Teams. So I think that helps you, especially at the beginning. Like I say, I'm quite lucky. All mine I've had my sponsors for quite a while, but initially always I had them face to face, and now we're a bit more flexible around it. But I don't know, Harry, if I think you did say you can do both, can't you? But
yeah, I mean, we've done both, and I meet virtually with my sponsor, but I think definitely in the initial one, doing them face to face was a lot better. Even just little things like, should we go get a coffee, and you're a little bit more relaxed and stuff like that. And I suppose just seeing somewhere else. I hadn't been to Warrington before, probably. And I mean, I only know where Jane's office is from the front entrance, but yeah, just seeing a different hospital and where they work, stuff like that. I've met people in passing when they've knocked on Jane's door to say, can we have this, can we have that? So yeah, I think definitely been a lot more benefits from it.
And I think people's situations are different as well. I had one sponsee who didn't drive, so we arranged to meet different places, and I've got one person who because of some anxiety and stuff, we usually meet off site. And yeah, but I guess you just need to build that relationship. You'll find out what works best for both of you, and then you'll get another sponsee in the future, and they might have a different preference. And it's about being flexible, isn't it? We're all so busy.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or thoughts? There we go. I can't see the screen. There we go. Mohammed, hi.
Hi, Jane. I'm just thinking more about the length of the relationship with the sponsee. So, Lorraine, you've said it's 4 years you've had with your sponsor. How long does it typically last, a relationship with a sponsee? So I guess you might initially set some objectives and some goals, and once they achieve them, is that the end of the relationship? Because I guess those goals change and they'll have some different ideas and different thoughts, etc. So do we evolve that relationship? Does it continue, or?
Yeah, so I've had a mix really. I don't think I've had anyone since the start of my relationships, since the beginning. I think I did have somebody, and I probably had them for a couple of years, and they dropped off, and that was a bit like they got another job and they kind of just moved on. It kind of fizzled a little bit. I think that ending the relationship can be really hard, and I guess that's why it's important why you have the objectives, so that you know what you're both working towards. So like I say, Harry's had, I suppose I'm his second sponsor, really, so that brought a different relationship, and we've probably covered different things than what Andrea and Harry covered. But Harry's carrying on his career phase, so if I can still help in some way and Harry's finding that useful, happy to continue. But yeah, it's down to the individual, really. I suppose it depends where they are in the career. If you're sponsoring somebody who is, like say, a band 4, 6, you know, they've still got a long way to go. But if you start when you're sponsoring somebody who's an 8C and you get them to, you know, deputy director, then they might need something different at that point and have like a, yeah. But I guess once you've built that relationship, it's kind of there forever, especially if they work in your system as well. You're always going to be sponsoring them and talking about them to your colleagues and things. So, but it's about being honest and that open communication, I think, right at the beginning, setting the objectives, and every time you meet, is it doing what we want it to do? If it isn't, can we adapt it and try something different? Or is it that you need something different and not being offended as the sponsee or the sponsor? I think it's the same with coaching, mentoring as well. Some things just naturally come to an end, don't they? Or you've grown, you've got everything you can get from that, or the individual has, and not being embarrassed by it.
I was just going to say as well, it was probably moving from Andrew to Jane probably was beneficial for me because it was a bit of a reset of like what I wanted to achieve and stuff like that. Because the meetings don't get complacent, but you probably forget sometimes what you originally went into it for and what you wanted to achieve. So my first meeting with Jane was going back over that stuff and where am I now? Have I achieved anything? What do I still want to do? But I think for now, probably I wouldn't be looking to change anytime soon or end because I think I still don't know where I want to be, but I still definitely want to progress a little bit more. And I still think Jane is the right person that can help me with that.
I think it's a really good question, though. I think it's something most people struggle with, that ending of those relationships, and maybe it's something we pass back on to One NHS Finance actually about a bit more guidance on that. Because it feels a bit uncomfortable, doesn't it? Either for the person saying, I don't want to see you anymore. It's like a bit like a breakup. Are there any other questions? We've lost a couple of people, but no, okay. I think Natasha's had to jump off onto something else, so I'll close the session down. I hope you found it useful. I hope we've not talked at you too much. But yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thanks, Harry. Oh, we've gone.